Hi, everybody. Andrew Champagne here alongside J.D. Fox for this week's edition of Champagne and J.D. For those of you tuning in for the first time, first of all, welcome. Thanks very much for spending part of your weekend with us as we preview the Houston Racing Festival at Sam Houston Race Park. J.D., as usual, we've got a terrific guest. She needs no introduction. I'm going to give her one anyway, though. And you know why?
It's just the type of guy you are.
No, because I'm trying to prevent you from talking about Pacific Gale from last week. Try to keep up, man. Try to keep up. Anyway, our guest this week is a tremendous one. She's been doing a lot of great work with Sam Houston so far this meet. Jessica Paquette joins us to go through the Sunday card. Jessica, thanks for stopping by.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. It should be a super weekend of racing.
No kidding. There's a lot going on at Sam Houston, and there's been a lot going on since the meet started. A lot of fun programs, a lot of big fields, a lot of different kinds of races on different surfaces. Really a tremendous job by the racing office. One of the things that's been mentioned a lot by various people that have been following Sam Houston is one of the big draws and one of the reasons that if you're out there and you care about really important matters in wagering, you need to be playing Sam Houston. I am, of course, referring to 12% takeout on multi-race exotics wagers. Jessica, that's huge.
It's huge, and you really can't beat that. You get a little more bang for your buck, and it makes it so much more appealing to play these multi-race wagers. I've been trying to take down a pick four, have not yet succeeded. I've been handicapping reasonably well and betting poorly, but maybe this will be the weekend.
Yeah, we know you had a big bomb opening night that none of us had. Myself, Chris Griffin, who was our guest that week, track announcer at Sam Houston, nor Andrew, and kind of blew up the tickets to start for us. But yeah, it's been great racing. It's tough racing, but as Andrew said, 12% takeout on all the multi-race exotics and a reconfigured pick six sequence for the Space City pick six. No longer a jackpot wager, 50-cent minimum. We love everything Sam Houston's doing, and this is one of the signature cards of the meet, and it's a Sunday card, which I also think is exciting for you guys to kind of get that that spotlight on Sunday, not having to share so many stakes races.
I think it's a really good idea. And again, it's an earlier post time. Post time is 1:45 Central Time, which is a little earlier, depending on where you are in the country. It should be a great card. And I mean, let's get right into it. It's a super card.
Yeah, the one thing I want to mention before we go there, Andrew, is we have three people in three different time zones, none of which is the time zone of this track, and we're all still excited to talk about it. So
yeah, no kidding. It's there's a lot going on for sure, but the main event is the Houston Ladies Classic. It's a grade 3 event, and it goes as race number 8 on the Sunday program. Post time 5:32 Central Time. Adjust accordingly wherever you happen to be. A field of 7 runners in this race, but some very good older distaffers lining up to go this 1 mile and 1/16 journey. The favorite breaking towards the outside, that's number 7, Latruska. And if you've been following the Gulfstream circuit, you probably saw her win in the grade 3 Rampart. She won by nearly 7 lengths. She earned a buyer speed figure of 98. Very, very fast mare by Super Saver out of a successful appeal mare. She will likely be favored, Jessica, but this is a good group that she's going to be going against.
It is, and she isn't necessarily the most consistent mare. She certainly has a really nice record. She's very fast, but she doesn't always show up. And this isn't the kind of race where you can kind of bring in your B game. There are some really nice horses here, I think, poised for a big effort. And it really boils down, the way I look at it, is whether anyone goes with her. If Motion Emotion doesn't go with her and she gets to coast on the front end, I think she'll be almost impossible to catch. But I think she's going to have some company.
Yeah, going a mile and a 16th on the dirt at Sam Houston. You mentioned Motion Emotion first off the bench and a barn switch going from Richie Baltus to Steve Asmussen. Not exactly a barn switch you can complain about as a fan of horse racing, but last saw in the personal ensign. But again, that's kind of the story of the race, as you touched on, Jessica. I mean, can Motion Emotion go out there with Latruska? And Andrew, you mentioned it. There's a couple other really solid mares in the Distaff division here. I've always been a fan of Lady Apple, and I think this is an interesting spot for her second off the layoff, coming off of an interesting campaign, to say the least, where she went all over the place. Ellis Park, Delaware, Oaklawn, Sam Houston last year, and was actually in this Ladies Classic as well. And last year's winner, I should say.
Yeah, that's for sure. Lady Apple, a hard-knocking mare, a daughter of Curlin, a horse that I think, and I know this opinion is not shared by at least one other member of this trio. That's called foreshadowing, kids. However, I can't help but wonder if maybe she's a little over the top. Maybe she needed the last out effort at Fairgrounds. That was against a weaker group, and she was third, beaten 5 1/4 lengths. Asmussen second off the layoff is very good, and if she runs back to last year's Houston Ladies Classic, she's got a shot. The question is, does she still have that kind of effort in her?
And sorry, go ahead, Jessica.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think she does. She's my top selection here. But I mean, it's a fair point. I just think she needs that one more step forward to kind of get back to the form she was in last year.
And I think the other question I want to pose, if it's not Lady Apple and Motion Emotion and Latruska just go crazy and duel on the front end, out of the remaining horses in the field, is there anybody at the longer odds that you guys can make a case for, at least maybe hitting second or third on the exacta or the try?
Jessica, you go ahead.
I like She's Our Fastest, the Texas bred. I think it's a great opportunity for some of the local horsemen to get to take a step up, take on the big girls in a race like this. And she's no slouch. I think she can really get a piece of it if everything shakes out in her favor. And I love a state bred breeding program. I think they're the backbone of the industry, and it'd be really neat to see one of the hometown favorite get their shot.
Yeah, and that daughter of Oratory, sorry, Andrew, I was just going to say that daughter of Oratory, actually only making her second career appearance at Sam Houston, was at Delta Downs most recently, finishing third in the Treasure Chest Stakes. But Andrew, She's Our Fastest, or somebody else that you want to touch on here?
JD, you better be really careful. I still have the hanger prop. I'm just telling you.
Okay.
I actually think Jeweled Princess has a big shot in here. What has she done wrong lately for trainer Kenny McPeak? She's hit the wire first in 5 of her last 6 starts. The lone clunker in that span was when she ran 5th in the Remington Park Oaks. Maybe she just didn't care for the surface down there, but she's come out of that well. She's won 2 in a row, including a restricted stakes race last time out. A Kenny McPeak horse getting better as they get older. Let me show you my big shocked face. I'm not shocked. It happens all the time. She's 8-1, gets Raylu Gutierrez, who is having an exceptional meet, a guy that I like a lot as a rider, despite the fact that he went to this school right here. And yes, I did wear this shirt just for the specific purpose of bashing Raylu Gutierrez's alma mater. Raylu, I like you. We'll have you on the show at some point, but state school. Anyway, Jeweled Princess, I think, has a shot. And 8-1 on the morning line seems like a lot of value on a horse that certainly seems well-meant.
I don't know how to follow that, Andrew. I mean, calling out Raylu like that, he's going to respond.
If you don't know how to follow it, then I think it's probably prudent to go to the race that I thought was by far the most wide open race in the late pick 4 sequence that we'll discuss 3 different tickets for. I'm referring to the John B. Connolly Turf Cup for older turf marathoners going the distance of 1.5 miles. This is a huge field of 12. Don't worry, we've got 2 more on the next page. Spooky Channel, number 10 in your program, is the likely favorite. The question is, who's going to be the second choice? I have absolutely no idea. If I could have hit the all button in this race from a pick 4 standpoint and played it for an appropriate budget, I would have. This is a fantastic betting race, Jessica, especially if you're not crazy about the 5-2 chalk.
And I'm not. I think he's pretty. I think I can see why he's going to get some attention. He's coming in off of that. He was a good 4th behind Largent, who ran 2nd in the Pegasus World Cup turf. He's been keeping good company, but I don't think he's unbeatable by any stretch of the imagination. I think this is a really interesting race. I mean, this really should just be the Mike Maker Cup. He's won 7 of the last 9 runnings of this race and has 3 very live horses here. But I think all 3 of those, really, they're at some decent prices, and they could get a little bit overlooked.
And I don't want to, when I say this, I'm gonna preface this that this is not a knock on Nick's morning line here. This is a very, very tough race. But I think in talking about a second choice, Andrew, I think it has to be one of the 2 makers. And I actually think it might be Marzo, just because I think people are going to see that early speed for Marzo. And there's a chance that Marzo can just go and run off. And at this 1.5 mile distance, sometimes crazy things happen. And if a horse gets a loose lead, they can be very, very tough to catch. So I think out of the makers, I think we're all, a fan of using all of them in multi-race, both of them in multi-race exotics. But I have a slight lean towards Marzo over Conviction Train. Your thoughts on that?
I would tend to agree, at least as far as the makers are concerned. I'm using them both. If Conviction Trade winds up winning, I'll still have a chance to have a pretty decent afternoon. But Marzo ran third in this race last year and is one of a couple of horses that may be getting back to doing what he wants to do as far as going that 1.5 mile distance. I'm going to get a little crazy here with you guys because I foreshadowed this a little bit. What's wrong with Vittori Kin going 1.5 miles? You have to go back to 2019 for the last time this horse ran at a marathon distance, but was third in a stakes race at Delaware, was fourth beaten a length in a grade 3 race at Churchill, fifth in the Elkhorn at Keeneland, ran in the Mac Diarmida and then Ajinski way back in 2018, has not won in a while. I usually do not like betting horses like this, but second off a long layoff for a very capable barn, and Mike Stidham has been working well. I think there's a chance Vittori Kin lights up the tote board at a big, big price.
I'm with you. You don't have to convince me. Yeah, we're both on Vittori Kin because, as you mentioned, this is a horse I tend to like because this horse has one win in North America. It was the grade 3 Louisville back in 2018. You can use your hanger prop again, and maybe it'll bring me good luck like it did last week. We're going to be selling
Champagne and JD branded hangers when we hit 100 subscribers on YouTube. I'm just saying, if you're interested, place your pre-orders now.
But a wide open field, and you've got to go deep in your sequence in your multi-race exotics, and obviously we're going to get into those more quickly. But an interesting horse here that I think you like a little bit in this spot, Jessica. I never know what to do with Tenfold in general, and in this spot, I certainly don't know what to do with Tenfold.
One of my worst handicapping traits is sometimes I will get fixated on a horse and keep picking them. And I'm like, but at this point, they owe me one. And Tenfold, boy, have I gotten suckered into this horse throughout his career. I just keep thinking he has a big race in him. But now the more I look at the turf really makes sense. I thought that last try on the turf was good enough. It's good enough to kind of set him up for this. I really think 1.5 miles will be ideal for him. Maybe this is the one, or maybe I'm a complete sucker again. But yeah, I really like Tenfold. I thought I was a little clever picking him. A couple of other people seem to like him as well, so maybe I'm not that clever.
I mean, obviously, I think we expected about what we got in the turf debut at Fairgrounds, and that was an interesting race. That was a very hotly contested race. You see a 6 there, but only beaten 2 lengths, as that was a nose bob at the wire between Logical Myth and Cross Border. And just interesting to see how that horse progresses. Obviously, from a class standpoint, you have to make the case that Tenfold probably might be the classiest horse in this field, but it's definitely a feast or famine horse. And another horse, I mean, Pimlico Special, that's the last win on the docket. So it's been a bit for Tenfold. So interesting horse. One more that I wanted to touch on quickly and get your guys' opinion on is Spooky Channel, because we haven't talked about the favorite in this race really yet, outside of very early on. You mentioned there, Jessica, the 4th place finish behind Largent in the Fort Lauderdale. Obviously, we saw what Largent came back to do this past week. But, looking at this horse and a couple of the efforts down at Gulfstream last year, I mean, you think this horse has a chance to be versatile because you see a little bit different trip every time if you dig through the past performances.
Yeah, no, and if you judge by the company he's keeping, I think he's keeping a little bit of a cut above what he's facing here from some of these horses. I like that he doesn't really seem to take his turf course with him. He seems to run on anything, anywhere they bring him. I just think he'll be a little bit overbet in such a wide open field.
Yeah, Spooky Channel lit up the tote board with the win that he had in last year's McKnight, going 1.5 miles. He was 36-1. And I will never forget the people who red boarded trying to tout his form against $30,000 stakes horses at Turf Paradise. This is not a knock on Turf Paradise. This is not a knock on Arizona racing. If you thought anything at Turf Paradise was going to translate to a graded stakes race at Gulfstream, I want to know the results of the drug test that we're about to give you. Now, that race was not a fluke. He's run well a couple of times since then. He was fourth in the Grade 2 Fort Lauderdale, and a couple of horses from that race have come back to run well. Largent was second in the Pegasus Turf. Doswell came back and ran in the McKnight as well. That's a good spot. Second off the layoff for Brian Lynch makes sense. The one question that I have before we get into the late pick 4 is, what is this early pace going to look like? That's always tricky in mile-and-a-half turf races, especially with a lot of riders coming in from out of town. It may very well be a case where we get one horse going out there in 26, 51 and change. And if that's the case, if you have that front runner, you have the right to get very, very excited, especially if that horse is a price.
I think Tut's Revenge. I don't think he's going to be a huge price, but I think he really fits that bill. He's one that, if you look back to some of his races, he looks like he gets real brave out front on the lead. If he gets out there by himself, he's one that I think he could be a real gate to wire threat if he gets loose. But that really depends what everyone else does.
Yeah, I think Tut's Revenge, obviously, I'm of the camp that I don't think this horse can get the distance, but I think definitely a pace factor. And I think Rye Eccleberry has a choice here. I mean, do you follow what the horse naturally wants to do and go out and try to get a loose lead? Or do you try to sustain to make sure you can hit that mile-and-a-half trip? Because we're also looking at a 76-day layoff and 2 local works, 5 furlong work and a 6 furlong work. You'd think that 6 furlong work was trying to get some fitness into the horse as well. So some would look at that as a positive sign, and some of that would look at, hey, this horse needs fitness to go a mile and a half and be a little suspect. So I think Tut's Revenge holds the key to the kingdom, or the sarcophagus, or whatever we want to call there, to this race.
Maybe? Do we want to call it a tomb?
I don't know. But yeah, I think Tut's Revenge, and obviously Marzo can be up front and be up front at this distance. So you mentioned that late pick 4, all states pick 4, that will get underway, and it's actually going to start in race number 7, Andrew, and it's a really strong race here in the Texas Turf Mile.
Yeah, this is not an easy race to start off with, especially if you don't have a strong opinion. There are a lot of horses that are rising in class. There are some horses that are coming in off of stakes races elsewhere. It's a fun way station race, I like to call it, because every one of these horses is going in a different direction, it seems. We've got a field of 12 with 2 also eligibles. JD, do you want me to start? Because I believe I have the strongest opinion here.
Yeah, I think you do. So we'll go ahead and let you start, Andrew, as you're singling the favorite.
All right. Number 5, Fighting Force, makes his 5th career start in this race, and he hasn't done anything wrong to this point. He debuted at Belmont going 6 furlongs, ran second behind a horse named Second of July, who was going really well at the time, ran third in an off-the-turf race at England. That's not what this horse wants to do. Got back on the turf at Gulfstream, looked very good breaking the maiden back in December, and then tried stakes foes in the Danube Beach. And JD and I have wildly different opinions on the same race that we saw. I simply think Kentucky Pharaoh is a very good horse that got his preferred trip with nobody challenging him, and that Fighting Force ran well to be second behind a loose on the lead, perfect trip, best horse in the race winner. Fighting Force has moved forward from a figure standpoint, ran a 72 back, ran a 77 buyer last time out, gets Lasix for the first time. I don't think necessarily Lasix is a performance enhancer, but to quote Tom Amos, I think it is a performance enabler. I think Fighting Force is getting better. I think he's peaking at the right time. And when Todd Pletcher ships, he does not ship for frequent flyer miles. I think Fighting Force will get a perfect stalking trip, a length and a half, 2, maybe 3 lengths at the most off of the lead. And I think he'll be the one that gets first run turning for home. He's 3-1 in the morning line. I think we'll get that price simply because the field is huge. And I'm also hoping that by singling in such a big field, it's sort of a separator single that creates value later in the sequence. I am singling Fighting Force in here, and no surprise to anybody that has followed this show, JD, you feel very, very differently.
So differently, in fact, because she has Fighting Force on her ticket, I'm going to let Jessica go
You're
next.
leaving our viewers in suspense. I hope you know what you're doing.
I don't disagree with anything you said about Fighting Force. The only thing I'd add, I mean, he has a nice female family as well. This horse checks a lot of boxes. I won't talk you off of him at all. I'm trying to be a little clever in this race. There's a long shot I really like. The more I look at this race, the more I think there's a chance that someone could really step up, and that's number 12, Catman. Hasn't shown all that much yet, but he's getting first-time Lasix here for Maker, and that's all enough to make me take notice. The way you look at his running lines, and you just wonder if this is a horse that bled and may actually move up a little bit with the Lasix. Yeah, I think he's bred for the turf. He's one I think is getting really overlooked in sort of one of my long shots of the day. I also like Texas Bad Boy, local horse. He needs to take a big step up to run with these horses, but he has a home track advantage in that he's proven on this turf course. And sometimes horses just don't like different turf courses. That may be a little like residual Suffolk Downs handicapping that I just take with me everywhere now, because that was such a weird turf course that some horses hated. But I love his win last time. He has a huge upset win. And even though he was a big bomb, it made sense if you actually looked back and watched the video of his debut race. He had a terrible trip that day. So there's some real long shots in this race. JD, who do you like?
A lot different horses than you guys, because I share zero in common.
Huh? Did we combine to go 8 deep here?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, God.
So I look at Fighting Force and I say, you're going to say that Louis Saez at 3-5 was not trying to get every ounce out of this horse early and was trying to go with Kentucky Pharaoh. I see that as a complete no excuses trip. Now, if you're going to say, okay, Kentucky Pharaoh would be 3-5 in this spot and trounce this field, I'm not sure that I'm ready to make that argument either. So given that, I think I've seen the capabilities of Fighting Force. If Fighting Force beats me, great. But I've got a couple different places I want to go here. Obviously, Win From Within is the second choice in the morning line, coming off of a strong maiden win with Louis Saez up at Gulfstream Park, and I think that switch to the grass was big. Obviously, competed with anticipation on dirt as a maiden in a Grade 3 effort, and was second choice in that race and didn't run exceptionally well. But I think it's a new year, and Win From Within will be in it. But the horse, I mean, Jessica liked a long shot at 20-1. I'm going to give you a long shot at 30-1, and that's the 10. And that's the 10 Bobby Brinkley. I really look at this horse and say that, okay, on the barn switch to Lucarelli, just trained this along with the ownership group of Chad and Josh. I hope there's something that I'm missing in the program. I didn't actually look on Equibase to see if somebody registered an LLC as Chad and Josh as an ownership group, because that just seems weird. But for Frank Lucarelli, claim this horse out of Brett Calhoun, and it seemed like grass is where they wanted to take this horse. And you look at the pedigree, and it's a very sneaky pedigree. Obviously, Brinkley the Dam was a turf winner, but it was at 5.5 furlongs. If you go back in the pedigree, there is some distance as well on turf. So I'm willing to take a shot here and say, hey, Bobby Brinkley looks like a horse that's going to improve with distance to me and can improve from the turf effort. So I don't think 30-1 is something I'm willing to pass up on a horse with as much upside as Bobby Brinkley could show. And you look at that mating performance at Lone Star. If you guys haven't went back and watched that, I mean, dusted what ended up being a pretty good field. I know that's a 5 furlong dirt race, and that was a maiden race, and that's tough to compare to a $200,000 stakes race on turf going a mile, but I think it can be done. The other horse I really want to touch on is the 3 Excess Magic. I think this horse has done absolutely nothing wrong, has won 3 of 4, raced at 3 different tracks, and all 3 turf surfaces that this horse has seen, he's liked. And that includes a Fairgrounds event last time out where he beat the 3-horse Invincibility pretty easily, beaten by 4, wasn't really ridden out, kind of just ridden for show, and gets Mena back up again in this spot. So I'm going 4 deep. Combined, we're going 8 deep. I swear to you guys, we actually find some common ground later in the ticket, but we're all off on islands. Andrew with this single, Jessica with 4 horses, and myself with 4 horses as we reach to the Ladies Classic.
Yeah, and this is the main event of the program, race number 8. We've mentioned it. It's a field of 7, headlined by the likes of Latruska and Lady Apple. I'm going 3 deep in this race. JD, Jessica, where do you want to go here? JD, you're the one driving the bus.
I am going to start because I'm actually going to single motion to motion here. I know I gave a big shout out to Lady Apple, and any horse that wins the Iowa Oaks in their career immediately becomes one of my favorite horses of all time. So I'm not going to say anything differently here, but I think this horse has a lot of back class, and obviously you don't know how the layoff line is going to look. Layoff line of about 6 months going back to August of last year, where ended up on the front end of the personal ensign and just couldn't keep with it. And really, sorry?
Ensign.
I know. I'm sorry.
You do not butcher the name of a grade 1 race at this place back here on my watch. Get it right.
Yes, but I enjoy mispronouncing things like Kosciuszko. That was also one that
Kosciuszko, I'm Polish. You're never going to win that.
Oh, I'm Polish too.
Nice. Okay, JD.
I'll let it slide, JD. Though it doesn't bother. It doesn't fundamentally offend my soul. It's okay.
JD, if you would like to continually chip away at the credibility of this program, I guess that's just fine and dandy, and you're entitled to do what you want to do.
All I was doing was trying to get a rise out of you.
Well,
and apparently
mission accomplished, huh?
I'm just saying, getting a rise out of me is setting the bar really, really low.
True. Very true. So I think that obviously, again, this horse has not won in a while, has not won since the Zia Park Oaks, but that was a stacked Zia Park Oaks back in 2019. I really think first off the bench for Asmussen, this horse can sit the trip behind Latruska. And I think from a class perspective, I think Motion to Motion is just a little classier than Latruska, who's coming into great form after the win. And I was trying to figure out how I could butcher Rampart, but I'm not going to try. So I'm singling Motion to Motion in the second leg here in the Houston Ladies Classic. And Andrew, you're going 3 deep, as you mentioned.
Yeah, and this isn't going to be too much of a shock if you paid attention to what I was talking about with the Ladies Classic earlier. I'm 1, 2, and 7 here. Latruska is logical. I wouldn't be stunned if she won. I'm still not entirely sure she wants to go 2 turns. I think a 1-turn mile hits her right between the eyes. 2 turns, maybe. And there is some speed in this spot, so it wouldn't shock me if she started spinning her wheels a little bit going around the turn. I don't think Motion to Motion needs the lead in order to run well. She certainly used to. Way back in the 2019 Kentucky Oaks, when there was a collection of god-awful rides that gave Serengeti Empress that race, Motion to Motion was supposed to go and didn't. Having said that, she's improved considerably since then. She ran second behind Midnight Bisou in the Fleur-de-Lis last year. That was a good race. She's shown she can sit just off the pace, and I think that'll give Miguel Mena plenty of options. The layoff, a little bit of a concern until you look at the work tab with a couple of bullets there. As singles go, JD, I don't hate that one. I think Motion to Motion's got a big shot. I also need to use Jeweled Princess, though. This is a horse that's hit the wire first 5 of her last 6 starts. Kenny McPeak, once he gets a horse good, they tend to stay good. So Jeweled Princess is a little bit of a price play for me in there. 8-1 on the morning line certainly hits me as an overlay. I think she's got a big shot. Jessica, your thoughts. You actually have the strongest opinion here, and you're singling a horse that neither of us used.
I'm going to single Lady Apple, the defending champion. My strategy was I just wanted to keep my ticket at a manageable price. So you really have to trim it down somewhere. And these turf races were not going to be where I could find any way to do that. And I think Lady Apple, she just needs one step forward. I know she isn't maybe quite the same horse as she was last year, but I think she'll be primed for this effort. And Asmussen's just so live here. I mean, everywhere, but at Sam Houston, particularly.
Yeah, no kidding. Asmussen live here, Delta,
everywhere, all
Will
the places.
Rogers, Fawner, Gulfstream, any track Asmussen's got a string. And it wouldn't necessarily stun me if Lady Apple magically found her form. Some horses really like this Sam Houston track. I just think that not only will she have to run back to her Ladies Classic form from last year, she may well have to run better. This is a good group. And as we've mentioned, we have 3 wildly different pick 4 tickets here. If you're looking for a show with 3 very different handicapping opinions, in case you haven't figured it out yet, you are in the right place. And we say that as we go into the third leg of the sequence, the Grade 3 John Connolly Turf Cup. As I mentioned, if I could have hit the all button in this race, I absolutely would have. Spooky Channel will be your likely favorite off of that fourth place finish last time out in the Fort Lauderdale. But regardless of whatever horse you like, if you have a strong opinion, chances are you're going to get a very square price. It's a good betting race. It's a good quality race. It's a good Grade 3 event going this 1.5 mile distance. JD, where are we going?
I'm going to lead off here because I actually am going the deepest of any of us here. I'm going 5 deep, 5, 6, 7, 9, and 10. And really, I can't knock Conviction Trade too much here in this spot. And I think Conviction Trade is my top selection. I am kind of defensively using Spooky Channel. Again, this horse is just very inconsistent. And because of that, has started the career at Turf Paradise and has ran at a lot of secondary circuits. And, now is back in some big time spots here and going for another Grade 3 win. I think you have to respect, but it wouldn't shock me if Spooky Channel even finished off the board in this spot. And Tut's Revenge, I'm using because I mentioned the pace scenario and mentioned that I think this horse is going to stop. On the off chance this horse doesn't stop, I have to include. So really Marzo and Tut's Revenge on the front end. Maybe no one can catch him. And you mentioned Vittori Kin. Andrew had to include that one. You look at the back class. They're winning that Louisville, but it's getting tougher and tougher to use that Louisville form from just past my, what would that have been, my 35th birthday on May 19th.
Way back when. Yeah,
2018. So I'm going 5 deep there. And I want to send this over to Jessica. Again, you mentioned needing to go deep in these turf races, and this is another spot where you've got to go deep.
Yeah, I think you really, what else can you do? I went with 4 horses here. Tenfold's my strongest opinion, like we touched on earlier. He's just one. I think he's going to have this big breakthrough, magnificent win. I like him on the turf. Conviction Trade, I think he's truly a long distance type of horse. When I'm handicapping these 1.5 mile races, for me, one of the things I do right off the bat is I eliminate the ones I really don't think can get 1.5 miles. I think that's a big jump for some of them. Conviction Trade, I think, really can. Marzo, I don't think you can overlook off of the effort last year. He's another one that does like the 1.5 miles. And again, Mike Maker, got to use them. Of course, it's going to be a journey to freedom, the one I didn't use that gets me here, but as is the nature of the beast. And I used Spooky Channel kind of with the same reason that you guys did. I don't want to get beat by him, but it wouldn't surprise me if he's off the board either. I don't think he's unbeatable.
Yeah, I echo a lot of the sentiments that both of you have already put forth. JD, you mentioned you were going the deepest, you're going 5 deep. I'm going 5 deep as well. And one of the ones that I used, Jessica, is a horse that you touched on. That's number 3, A Journey to Freedom, who we didn't really talk about when we were initially breaking down the race. But this is another runner that has not won in a very long time. Having said that, everything about this horse to me screams that he could get 1.5 miles. I thought his race in the Belmont Derby 3-back was pretty good. I thought his 2 races since then have been a horse just crying out for more ground and or a legitimate pace. He might get both here. And if that's the case, I think A Journey to Freedom could well come running late at a nice number. But I'm also going to use the other 2 maker trainees in here, Conviction Trade and Marzo. I'll use Vittori Kin simply because given his form going along in the past, if that horse beats me and I don't have him on the ticket, that is an I quit gambling kind of horse for me. And by the way, if I ever tweet I quit gambling, I give both of you permission to tweet back, see you tomorrow, because that's initial reaction anytime anyone tweets that. And if there was one trend in horse racing Twitter that I wish would go away, it's that one. It's really, really annoying. Ran over. Vittori Kin, I think, could win going 1.5 miles. Spooky Channel I'm using defensively here. Yes, he could win, but if you're looking for some value, I think there is value to be had potentially playing against him here. Maybe he's just more talented than this group, but even if he is, I don't think it's leaps and bounds. He's going to be favored. The question is, how much of a price can you tolerate if you're playing him to win?
All right, so you heard it here first. Spooky Channel in the winner's circle. I think we
all have him. You know, that
True.
wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. The worst thing in the world, I think, would be a horse that I have bet on a lot, and that's Signal Man, who just continually tries to find situations he wants. Ugh.
My notes on him are just no way he gets a mile and a half, which definitely ensures he gets a mile and a half.
Yeah, I liked him a little bit back in the marathon, and he did not get the trip I thought he was going to get, but I don't think it would have mattered. So, yeah, he's in my Dunzo list, to quote the great Tom Haverford from Parks and Recreation. Yes, we did work in a Parks and Rec shout-out on this show. Thanks for asking.
But that third place in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile in 2018 behind second place Knicks Go. I mean, come on, you've got to factor that in, Andrew, don't you?
What's your investigation look like as far as to if that's the same horse as you saw in the Gotham a couple of years ago? Do we have any updates for our listeners on that?
Oh, yeah.
I have a better idea. Let's maybe not talk about Knicks Go for a little while.
I love the Blood Horse cover.
Yeah, that was special. Put it that way. Special. Bringing the train back on the tracks here. Race number 10 is another stakes race. It is the Jersey Lily Turf, a $75,000 event that's drawn a lot of heavy-hitting barns here. You see Joe Sharp, you see Carl Broberg, you see Brett Calhoun, you see Tom Proctor, Mike Maker, Mark Cassie. Some big guns are coming here. Catch a Bid is the 7-5 morning line favorite. I repeat, 7-5. Has not run since August. Yes, had a couple of nice efforts back in 2019. But JD, Jessica, I don't see anything from 2020 that's good enough to beat this group.
I used her. First off, I like that this sequence ends with the stakes race. That's kind of a really interesting, deep way to knock the, end a great day of racing. Which also makes it a lot harder. She's tough to take. I used her. I used her. She may just be a little bit of a cut above some of these horses.
Yeah, maybe. But at 7-5, 7-5 off a trainer switch away from Chad Brown. I understand using her defensively, and it sounds a little bit like that's what you're doing, but you're also using the horse that I think is my top pick, and it's not the 20-1 shot you have on the table.
I was going to say, I was going to be really surprised if you landed on her too.
No, if the 20-1 shot comes in, I will be doing We're Not Worthies at your feet.
Oh. even a broken clock's right twice a day.
Hey, it's sometimes that's all we need as horse players to keep us coming back, right? But seriously, you've used number 6 Kuora and number 7 Morning Molly. Talk a little bit about those two horses.
So I'm obviously just trying to take a swing with Kuora. She's 20-1. You touched on it earlier in the show. Raylu Gutierrez is riding really, really well at Sam Houston. I think he has this turf course figured out pretty well. And one of the things I've noticed watching him ride these past couple of weeks, he finishes really well on these horses. And this is one with a lot of early speed. I think he can get her home. I don't know if she's good enough, but I think he'll give her a winning ride. And Morning Molly, I think, just offers a little more value than the favorite. This horse is just the model of consistency. She shows up every time. So if you're trying to beat the favorite, those are my two options.
Yeah, and I think both myself and Andrew are going to try to beat the favorite, and I'm going to sneak in here and pick the wrong race, and now I'm going to quickly cover myself and
live TV, folks, live TV,
and go
40. Noticed that you pointed out.
Hey.
Yeah. I'm going 4 deep here, 5, 7, 8, and 10. Andrew, when we were before we shared tickets, what did you say I was going to do in this race?
I thought you were going to single the 10 because of the ties to Woodbine.
I will say that I do like No More Temper for Mark Cassie, Declan Carroll up. I will say that this is a pretty big leap up for this horse. Hasn't tried Stake Company, and there's been some impressive performances this past year at Woodbine, but you look back at those fields, and those fields haven't done a whole heck of a lot. So I will say that, a horse coming down from a bigger circuit for a big barn, and after an okay effort at Tampa Bay, I have to include, but definitely not my top choice. My top choice is actually going to be Stunning Sky. And really, I'm looking back to the Valley View, and a repeat of that performance, I think, beats this field handily by 5 or 6 lengths. Obviously, threw up a clunker at Gulfstream in the Tropical Park Oaks at even money with Irad Ortiz up. Just didn't seem to be into the race. Kind of made a late rally, but really Irad had to ask her to get going. Hopefully we see a return to normal for Maker on the turf. And I think Stunning Sky, to me, might end up being favored over Catch a Bid in this race. I think it's going to be close. I think Catch a Bid's going to come up maybe a little bit, and I think Stunning Sky is going to come down a little bit. Again, Nick, I'm sorry. I'm just making comments here. But 5, 7, 8, and 10 in the final leg of the sequence, and that will present a $40 ticket for me, 4x1 by 5 by 4. Andrew, finish and take us home here.
Sure. JD and I actually see this race pretty similarly. I went 3 deep using 7, 8, and 10. My top pick, as I've mentioned, is Mighty Molly from the Tom Proctor barn. And a lot of that is because I feel like I've seen this movie before with the Proctor barn. Was off almost 10 months, came back, ran well at Tampa, didn't win, but ran well. Proctor second off the layoff. Horse has been working well and hasn't done anything wrong other than the first out clunker at Fairgrounds. Well, Tom Proctor's first-time starters, they usually don't win. So I'm completely okay throwing that race out. If you toss that, you have a horse, broke the maiden at Laurel, went to turf, and has 2 wins and 2 seconds in 4 turf starts. She's tactical. She'll be close to the lead, but I don't think needs the lead in order to run well. I think Morning Molly is sitting on a career best effort, and I think she's going to be the one to beat. I used Stunning Sky. I'm just not sure she's going to get the pace I think she wants. If she does, she's the one to beat, and I'll agree with you that maybe she goes favored, but I have to use her for sure. Do I think she's the most likely winner? I don't think so. And I joked about No Mo Temper, but I think that one can win as well because that one may well sit a similar trip to Morning Molly. So I think 7 and 10 will certainly be in that second flight. A horse that I'm not using, but I think you want to take a look at if you're playing vertical exotics, one we haven't necessarily talked about, drew terribly. But if number 11, Quick can navigate a trip out of the 11 hole, I think that one is very, very interesting. J.R. Caldwell has had an excellent meet to this point, 8 wins and 31 starts, a 26% clip. His horses are firing, and Quick did a lot of good work over at Remington and at Lone Star last year. Has some early speed and may very well be the beneficiary of being able to clear a couple of horses going into that first turn. So 7, 8, and 10 for me on top. If you're going deeper than that, the one I'd throw in is the 11 at 30-1 on the morning line. That strikes me as a potential value play if you're looking for a horse to run second or third.
I was not laughing at the start of your handicapping, Andrew, because I found it hilarious. What I did find hilarious is the wrestling meme slip you had of calling Morning Molly Mighty Molly, which made me laugh.
You know what? I was rewatching the 2020 Royal Rumble last night because, hey, guess what? The Royal Rumble is on Sunday, and Mighty Molly was an entrant.
There you go. It all ties together.
You can always tell that all of us are about the same age because we all grew up with wrestling the same way. There's this whole age group of us that it also overlaps into horse racing. I have this broader theory on all of this.
Yeah, that's now, by the way, it should be noted, Stable Duel is doing a pretty cool thing. As a tie-in to the Royal Rumble, they're doing a $30 contest at Gulfstream on Sunday, and the top 30 will get where they finished as the corresponding spot in the Royal Rumble. Now, what that means is if you win this $30 contest, yes, you've won the contest. Yes, you've won the first place prize, but you're probably not going to win the $100 they've set aside for the Royal Rumble winner because then your person has to last until the end of the match. But yes, Morning Molly, I think, will be Mighty Molly in the 10th and final at Sam Houston and close out my $22.50 ticket. That's another one of my favorite values, by the way, $22.50. You can do that going 1 by 3 by 5 by 3.
And we'll put Jessica's ticket up one more time for $24. You mentioned, Jessica, you might want to go a little deeper if budget allows, but based on, what we do in the industry, you're comfortable with this $24 ticket?
Yeah, I try to keep my tickets on the moderate side because I also like to go kind of race by race when I'm playing personally and play some exotic. So I try to keep things, on the modest side, and all it takes is one good long shot.
That's true. And my personal thing is I've got a soft budget of about $40 that I'll use. Anything beyond that, sometimes I don't necessarily feel comfortable playing, and I don't think reflects taking a stand anywhere. If you're going 3x3x3x3, for instance, which I've done a couple of times, unless you're trying to beat favorites in a couple of legs, you're spending $41.50 on a ticket that may well pay $60. So
yeah, I think part of the job is to kind of have an opinion and take a swing and narrow down some of the choices for people if they want to trust your opinion. If not, if you think I don't know what I'm talking about, that's also totally fine. But I need to have a couple of strong opinions.
Right, that's for sure. And again, that structure I mentioned, if you're throwing out favorites and using long shots because you think they can win, that can work by all means. There's a time and a place for every sort of structure. It's just that's the methodology that we take in trying to construct these tickets as far as being not just having a chance to win, but also having a chance for a lot of different handicappers from all walks of life with all sorts of budgets to potentially play them. So that's a little bit of insight into that. We've got 3 very different tickets that we'll be putting up on Twitter on Sunday when the Sam Houston Racing Festival is in progress. So you can take parts of our tickets you like, take some parts you don't like, and chuck them out. The important thing is get involved. 12% takeout. I'll repeat, 12% takeout. If you are a complainer, if you are somebody out there who just complains about takeout at every single trek that you think is doing things incorrectly, and you're not playing Sam Houston, just shut up.
Is that your final thought, Andrew?
Shut up in bed? That's what we're going with here?
No, it's just that's not my final thought. My final thought is something that's happening elsewhere. But Jessica, we'll kick off the final thoughts segment with you, as we usually try to get our guests involved here to bat lead off on this. But this is our final thought segment. It's a chance for you to expound on anything that you'd like to promote, anything going on that you want to bring awareness to. Floor is yours.
I mean, those of you who follow me on Twitter, you know that the cause nearest and dearest to my heart is Thoroughbred Aftercare. So if you're playing this weekend, you win a few bucks, you have a couple of extra dollars that you'd like to throw. There are plenty of deserving organizations like New Vocations, the Retired Racehorse Project, Old Friends, plenty of people that are doing a lot of good work making sure that these athletes have a soft landing when they're done racing. I have 2 of my own. And it's the greatest thing I've ever done. I feel like everything good in my life has come from horse racing. So the least we can all do is give back where we can.
And I'll give Natalie Voss another shout out. She was on the show a couple of weeks ago, good friend of the show. And she obviously, too, as we tape on Friday afternoon, we knew she won her Media Eclipse Awards for her stories on Thoroughbred Aftercare, but just wanted to give her a shout out again. My final thought, because Andrew, I'm going to put you in the dreaded final position here. Really, when it comes down to it, I think we just need to not take horse racing Twitter necessarily as seriously as some people do. The only thing I will say, and I don't want to expand on this point more, is that if you are not a fan of a joke about the New York Knicks and trying to back a front runner in relation to Knicks Go enough to call my company and find my personal voicemail and leave me a voicemail about it, you're probably taking life too seriously. And that is my final thought, Andrew.
I'm going to piggyback off of that because I spent a lot of time trying to think about what I wanted to say in response to that. And I'm not going to go super insane because, respecting everything involved, whatever. If someone posts something that you disagree with, that's fine. That's your right. Everyone has a right to their own opinion. If you want to reply to that opinion with something that has some sort of discourse to it, do so maturely and we're fine. There are ways and means in which to do that. The stuff that my friend had to deal with in response to something that, look, you can take whatever way you want. I understand. Whatever. That's not the point. You do not do that, okay? It's Twitter. I understand Twitter has turned into a mean place at times. And in fact, one of the things that I saw last night were people getting really, really mad. And when I say really, really mad, this is not an understatement. There are people that are calling for the heads of people who abstained from certain Eclipse Award categories. Okay, it's your right to think that. There's a reason rules are not in place that mandate having to vote on certain categories. I have been very public with my rationale for my Eclipse Award ballot. Not everyone agrees with me, and that's okay. I'm thoroughly fine with that. But it's my ballot. I get to choose the way that I fill it out. You don't get to fill it out for me. You have a right to your opinion. I respect most opinions that are made in a mature fashion. I do not respect certain opinions made by people who sound holier than thou and seem to have an opinion on absolutely everything. Pick your battles and read the room. And that goes for a lot of different people in a lot of different situations. And I could go on a lot more about this, but out of respect for everybody's time, I will simply say this. If you've got a problem with anything that I say, my Twitter DMs are open for a reason. If you'd like to talk with me and converse with me about anything, that's what it's there for. We are not meant to agree on everything. If human beings agreed on everything, the world would be really boring. Having said that, a lot of the calls for unity, sometimes some of that is respectful conversation, respectful discourse, the ability to disagree and still have respect for somebody, even if they don't 100% agree with everything you're talking about. At some point, that got lost, and we need to find that again. And that's all I got.
And the last thing I'll add is I want to thank everybody that reached out. I got a lot of love from a lot of different places. So that was much appreciated because that grew viral pretty fast that I had to deal with that. And I just want to thank everybody who reached in. So on a lighter note, Jessica, I know following you on social media, we get a lot of pictures of your beloved two horses who have very different temperaments and styles in terms of living their lives. But it's always fun to follow and watch.
Thank you.
So you can see her Twitter handle on the screen. Obviously, at Horse Tickets for me, at Andrew Champagne for the very unclever Andrew Champagne.
And by the way, really quickly, if you haven't seen Jason Beam's Beamstradamus video for Sam Houston, you're going to want to check that out. And remember, use the hashtag #BetALotAtHouston this weekend.
You're going to have to limit what you actually tweet out because the hashtag takes a lot of characters. But hey, that's helpful to our overall message of be thoughtful on Twitter. You're going to have to be thoughtful with those words to get that hashtag all in.
Less is more sometimes, JD. Less is more.
All right, Andrew, take us home.
All right. For Jessica Paquette, our very special guest, for JD Fox, my co-host, and everybody that has played a role in growing this program to where it is, thank you very much. If you like what we do, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our weekly updates. We've got a lot of fun stuff going on coming up in the coming weeks and months. But for now, remember, wear your masks as I get my directions, all sorts of mixed up. Wear your masks. And most importantly, stay off the beaches, y'all.
Take care, everybody.
Bye, guys.